Boker Tov. Today's daf is daf Mem Hey in Yevmot, as we learned for 4 Shleima 4. Yosef Israel ben Chaim Michal and Elazar ben Reuma. We also learned for a Aliyah Neshama of Chaim Tzvi Cooperman. Today's daf we begin at about the third line on the page, Meisfei. We had just discussed this concept. Let's understand carefully. This is very important. A goy or an eved. Eved means an eved Knani, not an eved Ivri. Eved Ivri is a full Jew. A goy who lives with a Jewish woman. What is the offspring of that union? So first, the Gemara said that kid's considered a mamzer. That's not how we hold, but that was the opinion of the Gemara that was expressed. We had Amar Rabbi Yochanan. How come everybody's moda? That an Eved or an Eved of Kachavim Habal Bas Yisrael, the kid's a mamzer. Who's moda? Shimon Tamari. The Gemara first said Shimon Tamari. Even though Shimon Tamari said that what makes a mamzer? Only chayve krisis. Only if you live with somebody, the punishment which would be krisis, would be kares. But a chayve lavin like machsugur. The classic case of machsugur shasam mishanissus, right? A man divorced his wife. She married somebody else, and then she came back to him after the second guy died. That's a lav. So Akiva holds, we had yesterday, that's a mamzer. We don't hold that way. He says, ein mamzer mechayv lav. We gave an example yesterday, and we said also the case of a kohen marrying a grusha, that a kohen marrying a grusha is also a lav. So according to Rabbi Akiva, that would also be a mamzer. I mentioned that that's another case of a lav, but I think later on we're going to have the Gemara. I forget exactly, but I think later on we're going to have the Gemara that even Rabbi Akiva holds that since the pasuk over there says that a kohen who marries a grusha makes a halal, lo yachal zar halal, so halal alosav ein mamzer also. We'll talk about that later on, whether even according to Rabbi Akiva holds that chayv lavin is a mamzer, that would be like machzer gushasam and mishanissus. That's a classic case of somebody you're not supposed to marry, but the punishment is not kares. Rabbi Akiva holds that's a mamzer. We don't hold it way. So the Gemara says here, even according to Shimoni holds that a mamzer doesn't, chayve lavin does not produce a mamzer. So he says that's only where chayve lavin, where there's kedushin, where you could kedushin chal like machzor geshas mishanissus. If a man divorces his wife and she marries somebody else, the second guy dies or divorces her, and the first guy takes her back, he's over in a lav, but the kedushin's chal, you'd need a get. Aval hacha become kedushin. The Gemara is at the top of the page. Since kedushin's not chal, if a goy marries a Jew, a goy marries a Jewess, that's not kedushin. It's not marriage. They had a bia, but it's not marriage. Even if he says here's a kedushin, that doesn't work. So he says that's like chayve krisis also, and that would make a mamzer. That's this first opinion of Rabbi Yochanan that a goy eved v'chava bal bas Yisrael bad mamzer. Meisfei, the third line on Daf Hayomi. Avchava bal bas Yisrael avlad mamzer. Yes, that's the first opinion of Shimon Yehuda Omer. Shimon Yehudas, we'll see, holds like Shimon Atemani Omer. A mamzer mishisur isur ever on kares. Mamzer is only if it's incestual and the punishment is kares, but not if it's a lav. And over here, even though you're not supposed to live with a goy, even though she's not supposed to live with a goy, the punishment is not kares. So this wouldn't make a mamzer. And that's opinion of Shimon Atemani. He goes the same idea that mamzer is only from where the punishment is kares. Elam Rabbi Yosef, Manakal Mod, who's the one not Shimon Atemani? Rebbe. Maybe it's Rebbe Yehuda Nasi. Avagav Rebbe Amar and Dvarma Lolo Ela B'dit Kiva. The Gemara later is going to say, let's go back to our cases of Yibam. If a man gives, Shimon gives Leah chalitza, and then afterwards, after he gives her chalitza, right? Ein bia chalitza. If he gave chalitza, let's say to Leah, and then he gave bia to her co-wife. What happens then? You're not supposed to do it, right? You're not supposed to do chalitza. You don't do bia afterwards. It's a lo yivni. He's not supposed to. It's a lav, but so it's a lav. The kedushin will be chal. But Rabbi Akiva holds no. You don't even need to get because it's iser kares, right? That not iser kares, but rather when even by a lav, kedushin's not chal. Even by a lav, the kid's a mamzer and kedushin will not be chal. So Rabbi says over there, that's only according to Rabbi Akiva. And Rabbi Akiva, sheyosa chalutza ke'erva, he makes a chalutza like an erva. And the kid would be a mamzer from there. The Leilo Sphere, Rebbe doesn't hold that way, right? Even though, right, elder, in other words, it's Rebbe who holds what? That when it comes to Isser Lav, only Rabbi Akiva holds the kid's a mamzer. He made a chutz like an erva. Rebbe doesn't hold that way, but Moda, even Rebbe L'chor is Moda, that the kid is a mamzer even though it's not a punishment of Kores, right? Rebbe disagrees with Rabbi Akiva and says that an Isser Lav would produce a mamzer. Rabbi Akiva Isser Lav would produce a mamzer, and Kedushin is not chal. You don't need a get. Whereas we hold by Isser Lav, you do need a get. Kedushin is chal, no mamzer, right? But still, Rebbe's moda. That's what he wants to say now. Rebbe's moda. Moda. Why do we see the Rebbe's moda? Even though we say there that it's not a mamzer and it's like a goy l'chara is not a case of a chorus. It's not like an erva. Still, the Chiyos Rav Dimi came out strong. Rav Yitzchak said the name of Shim Rabbeinu, said the name of Rebbe. Sometimes Rabbeinu is Rav. Here is talking about Rebbe. He holds the kids of mamzer, even though it's only in a Sholav. It's not in a Shekares. It's not right. Rabbi Akiva holds normally that Isser Lav makes a mamzer, and Kedushin is not chal. But over here, since Kedushin is not chal, anyway, he also holds a mamzer. That's what we're saying now in the name of Rebbe. Rav Acha Sarabira. Rav Acha, who was an officer there in the city, whatever, he had a position. Rav Tanchum Brei Rav Chia, Ish Kfar Akko from that place. Parukana Shabaisa. They redeemed some captive girls. There were some Jewish girls who were taken into captivity. It's a big mitzvah. It's called Pidyon Shvuyim, right? Kodesh Shvuyim. And also Me'arm Litferia. They had come from Armon, someplace there, Litferia. Rashi says not Tferia, but Antuchi. Anyway, they came to this place, and these rabbis, Rav Acha Sarabira, who was an officer of Tanchum Beit Rav Chia, they redeemed them. There was one of them, one of these Jewish girls, turned out had been abused, right? Had been violated, and she was pregnant from a goy where she was taken into captivity. Also, they came from Rami Amalu. Says, look, Rabbi Yochanan, we had before Rabbi Yochanan, Avlad Mamzer. Sorry, kids of Mamzer. Sorry, you were taken into captivity and you were raped, obviously against your will. Child's a Mamzer. Rav Yosef. What are you listening to all these people? Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Chanina. That they say Mamzer. Is it a big Rabbi Machshagabi? Is it a big deal, big chiddush that you could list a whole bunch of people who answer? You know, we say, like Rabbi Wein said, there's always another opinion. You know, somebody said, oh, you could do this, you could do this. I found the head. Yeah, there's another guy who says it's also there's always you want to tell me that these rabbis say the kids are mamzer? I'll show you other rabbis who say that it's not a mamzer. Harav Shmuel Babavel and Rabbi Shubin Levi in Eretz Yisrael and Bar Kapar, Eretz Yisrael. Some say it wasn't Rabbi Shubin, it wasn't Bar Kapar. I'm lechaluf take out, exchange Bar Kapar, but I live Ziknei Darming instead of in Bar Kapar, put in Ziknei Darm, Yisrael, Avad Kosher. So you want to show me, you want to give me a list of rabbis who say that it's also, I'll give you rabbis that it's a kids of mamzer. I'll give you a list of rabbis who say, no, the Vlad is kosher.
Was she married?
No, very good question. Was she married to a Jew at the time that she was raped by the guy? Good point. Excellent question. We're going to come to that. But we're going to come out at the end, since you brought it up, it makes no difference. If a guy raped a Jewish girl, whether she was married or not, the child is not a mamzer. Okay, that's good. That's good to know. There are cases like that. And you know, we live with cases like that. We don't have avodim today, but we have goyim. Problem is we don't know who's a guy and who's a Jew. That's another problem. But if a guy as opposed to if a Jew, Rahman al-Islam, raped a married woman and they had a child from there, if it was determined that was a child, that could be a mamzer. Now, in general, again, we said if she's married to a person regularly, you don't check, like we said, you don't check the DNA, you know, because you assume it came from the husband, since Rov Be'ilos, most of the time it came from the husband. So if she was raped once, but if there would be a case where, you know, that's a classic, let's say he lived with her many times, she was in captivity, or they were just adulterers, and then it would be a mamzer. Okay, but going not. So that's what we're saying over here. So like kosher. He's not a great yichus, right? But it's not a great yichus. You know, he doesn't have a great father, but it's kosher. Ella Rabbi Yosef. I'll tell you, Rebbe. So Rabbi Yosef says, what are you listing all these rabbis? Do you want to say there's rabbis here? Let's go with Rebbe. Rabbi Yonasi, he was a recognized authority. El Rabbi Yosef, Rebbe goes to Rebbe. They said the name of Rabbeinu, the name of Rebbe. And as if you want to quote and say that this captive girl who was impregnated by a guy is a mamzer, base it on Rebbe's opinion. Now, that's what we have so far as Rebbe. Shubin Levi Omer, Havlad Makukul. The child is tainted, but he's not a mamzer. It says Laman, Ilay Makal. What do you mean Makal? If it means for all the Jewish people, that means he's a mamzer. What does it mean tainted that he can't marry anybody in the tribe at all? Mamzer. Rav Shapiro said before, Avlad is kosher. Rav Shapiro was one of the ones that we quoted as saying that he's one of the ones who said that it's kosher. So what do you mean that it can't be a mamzer? El Lakuna. He means that he's for a Kohen, he's not the Kulam Maroi, all of the Machshiri, everybody who say, even the Amoram who say that Evet Avlad is kosher, Modesh Avlad Pagum Lakuna. The child is a Pagum Lakuna, meaning that he is tainted. Now, what do we mean by that? The son is tainted. The son he's certainly not a Kohen. He comes from a goy, and if let's assume he's a boy. So what? He can't marry a Kahan. He can't marry a Bas Kohen. The Bas Kohen is Rashi says ain't kedusha b'nashim. When it comes to the whole concept that the Kohanim are on a higher spiritual level, they can't become tamei, they don't go to funerals, things like that. It's only for men, not for women. The rules about a man can't marry a grusha, right? There's no rule about a divorced Kohen, a Kohen wife, a Kohen woman. There's no rule that a Bas Kohen can't marry a man who's divorced. Right? It only works. The men have the kedusha, not the men. Anyway, so he says, "What do you mean, Bagum Kam Lakun? He's not a Kohen anyway, right? His father was a guy. Let's assume we're talking about Avi Kachavma. When I say Avi Kachavma, so we mean Evet too. But let's just say quickly Avi Kachavma, right? So, but it means that if it's a girl, it's Pagum that she can't marry a Kohen. That's what we mean over here. It says Shubita Nakadim Teled Bas Sul Kohen. She can't marry a Kohen. Okay, she's like a Zona or a Grusha can't marry a Kohen. How do we know that the child is pagum? We had the other day. And a mom can't marry a Kohen Gadol. She's only also married a Kohen Gadol. She can marry a Kohen. She can marry a regular Israel. It's not equal to. It's not equal all the way around. She's only forbidden to marry a Kohen Gadol. Still, bina pagum, her child is considered a halal, right? Can't marry a Kohen. Zushi sur shavakol and edin shabrakam. Over here, this woman, right? This woman. You can't marry, Survakol, meaning can't marry a guy who's not allowed to marry any Jewish woman, right? So certainly the child become, in other words, she can't marry anybody over here, Shapsul, right? So certainly she can't marry here where she's married. Zushi Survakol of Chabm is also, but a Kahanas meaning a Bas Kohen or a Levi, so can't marry any Jewish woman. So certainly a child should be public. So it's more maybe it's different. Not only the children tainted, but she's tainted, right? Because she himself becomes a chalel. It says lo chalel, right? She herself becomes, but she can't marry a Kohen now, even a regular Kohen. Normally an Amona could marry, but if Amona marries a Kohen, she becomes tainted. So here it's tainted. Well, how but over here, this Jewish woman who slept with a guy also is tainted. She's a zona now. Remember, I told you that case with that Moshe Feinstein found a heter for a Kohen Baal Tshuva who wanted to marry a Grusha, right? Boy and girl became Mechozer B'Tshuva. Turned out he was a Kohen. She was divorced. What are you going to do? So they checked into his background. Moshe says, where did his parents weren't religious? Where did his parents go to school? How did they go? She went to university in Berlin. An American woman. She went to university in Berlin. Did she have any relations? I'm sure she slept, in the dormitory. She slept with everybody over there, all the goyim over there. So she's a zona. A Jewish woman who sleeps with anybody that she's not allowed to marry. Anybody that she's not allowed to marry, which includes goyim, right? Includes the goyim, imams, or anybody she's not allowed to marry. She becomes a zona. As such, she becomes puzzled to Kohen. And therefore, this Baal Tshuva's mother was not allowed to marry his father because he was a Kohen and she was a zona, even though he wasn't religious either, but he was a Kohen, she was a zona, the offspring of which is a halal. So this Baal Tshuva is not a Kohen, he's a halal, and he was allowed to marry the divorcee. That's how they found the heter. So here the point is also, she's puzzled, meaning where does she puzzle from? She's puzzled even from Truma, even if her father was a Kohen, she can't eat Truma in his house anymore. If she was a Yisraelis who was married to a Kohen, and was eating truma based on him, even if he died, if she had children that bonded her to the family, but no longer. Once she slept with somebody she's not allowed to. So here also she's puzzled. So that's what we're saying here. Even if you say a Vlad Goy Abbas Israel, the kid is kosher, right? The kid's makulka, but still he can't marry. If it's a girl, she can't marry a Kohen. She can't eat truma, etc. That if a guy lives with any Jewish girl, she's now unfit to eat truma. Shnamar bas kohen kisi al managusha. A bas kohen, what if she was married to Yisrael and she became widowed or divorced with no children? She can go back and eat in her father's house. Only if she was married to somebody who she can become a widow or divorced from. She's not divorced or widowed from the guy because she couldn't be married to him in the first place. You can't be a widow unless you were married. You can't be divorced unless you were married. She can't marry the guy. Therefore, she's not entitled to eat truma anymore in her father's house if she slept with a guy. Amar le Abaya. Okay, so at this point we're pardon?
She was never married. When she slept with this guy.
Yeah, no, she. That's correct. She has no.
She's not married. She can't go back to the father's house.
She can no.
Because it applies to when she's not. When she was, if she were married. And her husband, then she can go back to her father's.
If she was married to Israel,
then she can go back.
And if she was married to Israel, and she had no children, and her husband died, then she can go back and eat truma. But if she slept with a guy, then she cannot. Even if she slept with a guy before she was married or after she was married, whenever she was married, if she ever slept with a guy, a Jewish woman is not to sleep with a guy. Period. No matter under any circumstances. So if if she did, she's a zona and she's not entitled to eat truma anymore. Period. Amalei Abayis. So at this point, we're saying that Rebbe said that it's a mamzer, right? Narkis kids a mamzer. Amalei Abayis says, "My husband said Rav Dimi. Why are you depending on Rav Dimi who came from Eretz Yisrael and reported that that's what Rebbe said? Smoch out of Rabban. We always have Kiyasa Rav Dimi, Kiyasa Rabban from Eretz Yisrael. Rabban had a different version of what Rebbe said. He said the name of Nasan, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, and the name of Nasan and Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Kiyas Rabban Omar Rav Nasan. He said, Rabban said that Rav Nasan and Rabbi Yehuda Nasi morim ba'atayra. That if a guy lived with a Jewish girl, it's a heter. Uman Rabbi Yehuda. Who's Rabbi Yehuda Nasi? That's Rebbe. So you said Rebbe said that she's a mamzer. No, we have a different version. Rabban said that Rebbe said it's not a mamzer. It's not mamzer. Rav is also morabarate. Rav also held that it's mutter. Rav was the like Gadol in Bavel, and also he was in Eretz Yisrael. In other words, the two great leaders, Rebbe and Rav, both held that it's mutter. How do we know? Rav. Man came before Rav. What's the halacha? In other words, he himself was in that situation. A man came who was the offspring of a guy. A guy had slept with his mother, and he was the offspring. And this this young man came to Rebbe and said, "What's the halacha?" Amalei said, "The Vlad's kosher. You're kosher." Amalei, okay. Can I marry your daughter? Will you give me your daughter's hand in marriage? I'm kosher. Marry your marriage? No, I don't give you. Amar Shini Bachia. People say there's a saying that in Madai, in Mead over there, that Gamla B'Madai, a camel, a big camel with 4 big legs, a Kava Rakta, can dance on a small measure. It's like a joke, it's like it's an exaggeration. Because he's able to do a little thing. But if you go there, you'll see that he can't. People say there you can have a circus, a camel could dance on 2 square centimeters or something, right? Well, you're also saying, Hakava, here's the measure, Hagama, here's the camel, Hamade, can't dance. You can't dance either. You're saying that he's allowed to marry, that he's a kosher, that a guy who lived with a Jewish guy, the kid's a kosher, but you won't give him your daughter. I wouldn't give him my daughter, even if he was a great Talmud Chacham and a great tzaddik. I don't want to give him my daughter. I don't like him. Whatever. I don't like his name. If he would be like Shur ben Nun, Imar lo have left, you wouldn't give him your daughter. He could marry somebody else. Other people would be willing to take Yeshua ben Nun as a son-in-law, right? But this guy, Imar lo have left, if you don't give him your daughter, nobody will, because people think that he's a mamzer or he's tainted. Nobody else will marry him either. Anyway, so that was the story. So this young man, who turns out was not a mamzer, wouldn't leave Rav. He kept bothering him, and he gave him the evil eye, and he died because he kept bothering him. He didn't want to give him his daughter in marriage, even though he was kosher. There's a lot of people who are kosher, but you don't want to let them marry your daughter. Yes. Rav Masna also said that, again, a guy, we're talking about the case of a guy who lives with a Jewish woman, the child is not a mamzer. They also came with a story of Rav Yehuda also, not only Rebbe, but Yehuda, and not only Rav, and not only Rav Masna, but even Rav Yehuda also was the why came for Rav Amalei. There was a man like that who came before Rav Yehuda. He told him, listen, my father was a guy, my mother was a Jew. What am I? You're kosher. Amalei says, what's the solution? Amalei, zil it, or go hide yourself. In other words, don't go advertising. Go somewhere where they don't know you, right? Go somewhere they don't know you, and you come to shul every day, put on film, they'll assume you're a Jew, and you're a good boy, and you get married. You don't have to go advertising it, right? Because you are kosher. You see from over here that you don't have to advertise every stool, because that's only, unfortunately, talk about that Yos Yaakov, the Rav Chaim Kanievsky's father, said that if it's something that they wouldn't get divorced over, you don't always have to tell every stool that a person has. In any case, he says, go hide yourself, don't or marry somebody like you. Marry a girl whose father is a guy and his mother's a Jew. Either marry somebody like you who's not going to have any objection because you're both the same, or go to another city where they don't know you and you're a Jew, you're 100% Jew. If it would be a mamzer, the rabbi wouldn't have told them, go hide yourself and marry anybody that you want. Not a mamzer. Pardon?
He didn't ask you to do it. And if the guy's a mamzer,
yeah,
he doesn't want anybody to know.
Well, we don't know. It could be that there's a mamzer who's a Talmud Chacham who's a tzaddik who wants to follow the law. The law is that not only is it forbidden for you to marry a mamzer is forbidden to marry a Jew too. It's us on both. So maybe we're talking about mamzer could be a tzaddik. He could be a tzaddik, could be a great Talmud Chacham. Unfortunately, he's got a situation. He's got a blemish that cannot be rectified. Similarly, B'chias came to Rava. Came for Rava Amalei. He came for Rav, maybe it's the same person, came for Rav Amalei. He went for another opinion. I'm like, go into exile. In other words, go hide yourself somewhere where people don't know you. Now listen to this very one. The place that Bey Merse was a place, they sent him this question. Now we've already seen that, and that's going to be the halacha, that a guy who lives with a Jewish woman, the kid is not a mamzer. We had opinions, yes, but we said no, he's not a mamzer. Now he asks, what about Misha Chetzi Chetzim? What a person who's half free and half a slave? How do you have that? When he was owned by two people and one person freed his half. So now what do you do? What about that? What about that? Now, Amalei, I understand. Hashta Eved Kulo, Amikosher, Chetzim boy. If a full Eved who lives with a Jewish woman, the child is kosher. So if he's only a half an Eved, certainly should be okay. Amar Yosef, Mardashmaita, who said this whole thing that a guy who lived with a Jewish woman is the child is not a mamzer. Mana Shmaita, who is that? Mana Rav Yehuda. The kid's a mamzer. You just said it's a kavod. If a full eved lives with a Jewish woman, the kid's not a mamzer. So half certainly. What do you mean? If that would be the case, who's the author of this? Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda said this, right? But Rab, because based on what Rav Yehuda said, that a guy living with a Jewish woman, the kid's not a mamzer. But Rav Yehuda said if it's half and half, kid is a mamzer. Ain't no takana. Why? This is kid med Rav Yehuda. So Gemara says why it doesn't make sense, right? Yes, it's kid med Rav Yehuda could go into Kodesh Bas Yisrael. Listen to this. It's only man. He married a woman. This half Jew, we call him a half Jew. He married a Jewish woman. The half of him is a full Jew. That half married a Jewish woman, right? Married a Jewish woman. Now the half of him which is not a Jew, which is an Eved, right, is sleeping with a married woman, even though it's the same guy and the same woman sleeping with a married woman. It's a little bit far out. We're gonna slug it up soon. But okay. So that's why the kid's a mamzer, because the half of him who's an Eved is sleeping with a married woman. Till now we weren't talking about. You brought up the question: is it married or not? We're going to Hi, from I said there, so Mishmei Rabbi Yaakov, L'divrei Apostle, the one who says that a guy who lives with a Jewish woman, the kid's a mamzer, makes no difference if the woman was married or not. Even if she was not married, the kid's a mamzer. L'divrei Machshir, like Rebbe, and now he's saying Rav and Rav Yudah, Rav Masa, who say that the kid's not a mamzer, Machshir afilu beishes ish. Even if the guy slept with a Jewish woman who was married, the kid is not a mamzer. Ushneimam du'el meishasav. Aishasab, you can't sleep with your father's wife. It's not your mother. Your father's wife, you can't sleep with her. Why? It says over there you shouldn't leave. You shouldn't allow to live with your father's. It says over there. It says and right next to it says lo yova mamzer, to show you that a mamzer comes from there. So el meishasav man the puzzle saver ma aishasav lo taf kedushin. Just like there's no kedushin, it's not chal by your father's wife. It's her kares, so there's no kedushin. Vlad mamzer. I've called the tafs of kedushin Vlad mamzer. Wherever there's no kedushin mamzer, and a guy can't make kedushin with a Jewish woman. The kid's also a mamzer. That's one who says that a guy who lives with a Jewish woman, kid's a mamzer, even though it's only allowed. But since there's no kedushin, as we said, kid's a mamzer. Uman the machshir, the one who says that a guy who lives with a Jewish woman, the kid's not a mamzer, the kid's kosher. Yes, you can't marry your father's wife. Kedushin's not chal. Kedushin doesn't take effect. But she can marry somebody else. You can't marry her. The day somebody else kedushin. They can't marry any Jewish woman. So therefore, you'll see from over there that it's only a mamzer when kedushin could be chal, but when there's no kedushin, like the case over here, just the opposite. Not that it is a mamzer, but it's not a mamzer. Mamzer is only where somebody else could marry that person. Just you can't. But over here, since nobody can marry, Ella. So therefore, what do you see over here? What are you telling me this business that the half Jew married a woman and the half of him, which is not a Jew, is living with an Ashish ish? Doesn't make any difference. Doesn't make any difference if he's married or not. Because even if he's a full guy married to a Jew, and she is a Jew who's married, the kid's not a mamzer. Elikit med Rav Yudah. When Rav Yudah said over there, the kid ain't l'takon, I'll tell you how. Kagon shabal Ashish ish. He slept with a married woman. Here's the problem. Here's the problem. A guy who lives with a Jewish woman makes no difference if she's married or not. The kid's not a mamzer. But if he's a half a Jew who lived with a married woman, not the woman, he didn't marry her, he lived with a married woman, so the kid's a mamzer. Why? Because half of him was a Jew. If a Jew lives with a married woman, that's adultery, and the kid's a mamzer. I'm Rav Gaza. Rav Gaza told me that Ikla Rav Yosef Rabin last one. Rav Yosef Rabin came to their city, our city. There was a story of a woman who was not married, and he was machshir, puzzle. But if it was a Jew, but if she was married, he said it's puzzle. Not like we just said. No, Rav Gaza told me the story differently. Lo Rav Yosef Rabin, he wasn't Rav Yosef Rabin. The story wasn't with him. Ela Rav Yosef Rav Zveidah and he was machshir. If a guy lives with a Jewish woman, makes no difference if she's married or not. The kid's not a mamzer. And if a half guy and half Jew live with a married woman, then he could be a mamzer because half of him is a regular Jew. But if she wasn't married, the kid wouldn't be a mamzer. Amalei Rabacha Rei Derava Ravina Ikla Meimelas when Rav Meir came to our city, but whether she's married or not, the Hilchasa here, the Gemara comes out with the halacha of Vlad kosher. The Vlad is kosher. So an interesting thing. If a Jew commits adultery with a married woman, kid's a mamzer. If that union produced a child, kid's a mamzer. But if a guy, kid's not a mamzer. Kid's not a mamzer, even though she's not allowed to. Right? Rabba Achshir Rav Mori Bar Rachel. Mori Bar Rachel was a person. He says Bar Rachel. His mother was Rachel. Doesn't list his father because his father wasn't Jewish, right? And he was Machshirim. Umanya Papurse Bavel. He appointed him to be one of the pursers in Bavel, like a gabbai, the gabbai tzedakah, the purser who takes care of the money. He was even though he said Samta Samalacha Melech Mikerav. You're only supposed to appoint people like kings, people of authority from among your brothers. Hi, even the Imam Yisrael, since his mother was Jewish, he's considered Kerabachah. In other words, he's considered a Jew because mother. Didn't we have the same thing with Agrippa Samelech? His mother was the story. In other words, if the mother was Jewish, he's Jewish. Okay, so we're finished with this topic of Avikacham of Abbas Yisrael, but we're still talking about Avdei Rav Chia Bar Ami, the Evet of Rav Chia Bar Ami. Listen to this. He was tovel a non-Jewish woman, l'shem insasa, to marry her. What he really explained over here he didn't really, she didn't have, it wasn't Kabbalah Hashem Gerus, but she was Tovel because he wanted to marry her, meaning he didn't want her to be a Nida, because a woman is a Nida if she hasn't gone to the mikvah, and he sent her to the mikvah for that. Amar Yosef, I could tell you that her and her daughter are kosher Jews, even though this was an Eved, the Eved of this man, the Eved, who's an Eved of Chiya bar Abba, he was Tovel, a non-Jewish woman, so she shouldn't be a Nida. So he says, you know what? She's kosher Jew, and the daughters also. Ba Ravasi, like Ravasi, Dam Ravasi, Milo Tovel and Dusa. She was, if she was Tovel, she didn't have I want to be Makabel Tari mitzvahs over here. But if he was Tovel her for a Nida, that means like she's living like a Jewish woman. Goyim, shiksas don't go to the mikvah to be a Nida, right? So that's what Ravasi is going to say at the next case. So Ravasi says she was Tovel for her Nida, so that means she's Tovel to be a Jewish woman. And her daughter is okay, but Barsa, her daughter then is okay, because even though this was the Eved of Rav Chiya Barami, who was Tovel this shiksa, right, to become Jewish, the daughter's okay because I would come to have a bas Yisrael, we passing on a bas kosher. Now we have the story Yehuda Vikarle Bar Maisa. They called a certain kid, oh, your mother's a shiksa, because she wasn't Tovel for Geirus. Amar Vasi Milo Tovel and she went to the mikvah in order not to be a Nida. That means that she was noeg like a Jewish woman. So that's good enough. That's good enough. We're making with those things, not like today. There was another story with a man who's called, oh, your father was a guy because he didn't tovel properly. He went to the mikvah because he had a seminal emission, so that was what a Jewish people goyim don't do that. So that's also considered showing that he went to the mikvah to customize himself like a Jew. That's good enough for Geirus. The intent makes him, makes him a Jew, makes him a Jew, makes him a ger, makes him a Jew. That's right. Makes him a down. Pardon? Who? What about Mila? Okay, so assume he had Mila already, right? Maybe he had Mila already, or let's say he had Mila also. No, he also has to bring a carbon in the days of the base Mikdash. Fine, but that was good. In terms of the tefillah, it was okay. They called him that because he felt that he didn't go to the mikvah l'shem geirus. As far as the mikvah point, we're only dealing with the mikvah. We're not dealing with the other parts. Amarav, listen to this case. We're going to say the following thing. Listen carefully. A Jew can own a slave. A Jew can own a slave, right? Can have an Eved Kanani. A guy, according to the law of the Torah, cannot really own the person himself. Cannot own a Jew in terms of owning him for a full ownership, or even another guy. So let's say you buy it Eved from a guy. And this Eved jumped the gun. He forestalled you. He went to the mikvah l'shem chaim. When a Jew owns an Eved, he puts him to the mikvah l'shem avdus. So he should be an Eved Knani, meaning he has mitzvahs like a woman. But he gives him Mila also, Mila and Tefillah l'shem Eved Knani. This Eved though, who was owned by Tyler, and Tyler sold him to Yankel. And when he sold him to Yankel, the Eved was smart, and he knew that Tyler doesn't really own him, even though he was his Eved, right? And he jumped again, and he went to the mikveh to be a full Jew. He jumped the gun. He forestalled him. He toveled himself. He's free. He's a free man now. He's a free man. You can't own him. My timer. Top of the page. The government doesn't own the goof of the person. He can only sell what you have. You can't sell what you don't own, right? You can only sell what you don't own. What you own, you don't own him. Therefore, you couldn't sell him. What he sold to the Jew was what he owned. He didn't really own him. Even the kind of a tavel Hashem and Charm. Since this smart Eved went and told himself Hashem and Charm, after the Shibuda, he canceled the obligation that to be in servitude. Chametz mafkiya midei shiba, right? These things, famous call that. Let's say you have I owe somebody money, and I said, okay, take the collateral from here, get paid from here, and then I give this animal will be your payment, and then I makdish the animal to be a carbon chatas or oil or whatever, takes away the obligation. That's one hegdish chametz. Or let's say I told the guy, okay, I'm going to give you this bread. Well, you'll take the bread from here. Then it came Erev Pesach at 6 hours. I don't own the bread anymore. I'm supposed to destroy it. That takes away the shibud. Said with shichur, if he's free takes away the obligation. The freedom takes away the obligation. If you're free the slave, Yeah, you say, okay, you can take my slave in payment, and you free him, takes it away. But here also, the freedom of the slave took away the obligation. Masr of Chista, what do you mean? Is that really the case? Maisa of Bluria, there's a story of Bluria Grush. Bluria was Megayer. And when she was Megayer, she had slaves also, right? She come over there, they went and they told themselves. They also they freed themselves before she got free, before she was Megayer. So she was a goy, and before she was Megayer, the Chum said, okay, they're free now because they were told themselves we were going to become a ger, and she was going to take her slaves also into servitude, and they freed themselves. Only because they did it before, but not after the jump. So what do you see? It's mashma that even when she's a Jew, she can't own them. No, if they did before Ben first, whether they said beferish I'm being tovelish and geiris or not, it works. Afterwards, meforish ain bestam lo. After she converted, and now she's in the process of bringing them over into her possession again. Only if they said beferish I'm doing l'shem geiris, but stam it doesn't work. So that's why it said lefanel. If they did before her, it's mashma only for lo. Afterwards, they can't. No, but the point is that again they acquired themselves because when she was a goy, she couldn't own them, and after she owned them, if they said beferish before they got a chance before she got a chance to tovel on the shame avdus, they did it for themselves. Then it works. That's only if you buy from a goy. But let's say the goy sells him his own body. Let's say if you buy from a goy, since the goy doesn't really own the other eved, so he forestalled him. He says, because you don't really own me anyway, so I freed myself. But if you buy the eved, the goy himself sells himself, then you can buy from the goyim. You can buy from them, but they can't buy you. He said they can't even buy one another. So what do you mean they can't buy you? That you can't buy your servitude, your work, you can't work for them. You can't buy Yisrael, you can't buy Yisrael for your work, you can't buy your servitude. Like it says, if a Jew is poor and he was sold to an offshoot of a Mishpachas Ger, remember what is that? Mashpachas Ger Zevik Chavim. If a Jew is poor and sold himself to Eved Chavim, you're obligated to free him, etc. So you see that a guy could buy a Jew for his servitude, for his work. El Lav Legufe means for El Lav Legufe, become Rachmana Atam Konim Ehem. The Pasi Legufe meaning become Rachmana, you can buy them. Atam Konim Ehem, Afilu Legufe. You can even buy them. In other words, they can own you for servitude. But there you see that. So we say over here, when you say that they can't buy you, we don't mean for servitude. We mean that he can't buy your goof, and they can't buy themselves. Right? So he says, no, maybe that means with paying for him and with tefillah. Meaning, how do you know over here? Rashi says that maybe it means that you can buy them if you buy them and you're told them that way. But if he jumped the gun, maybe a guy also, we're trying to say over here that if the guy sold you himself and he jumped the gun and went to the mikvah, then it doesn't work because then you can buy his goof. Maybe that's only if he was told l'shem avdus. But if he jumped the gun and he was told for himself, maybe he would also be free. That's taka akasha. All right, tomorrow's daf is from this point on Shmuel, and the Shabbos daf will be on the podcast. On Sunday, Mirz Hashem, we'll start from the top of Mem Ches on Sunday's daf. Good Yontif, good Shabbos.
Good Yontif, good Shabbos. Beautiful, thank you.